So I thought I'd do another video about the TDD stuff, and in this one I wanted to focus on the front end, the kind of the web part, the web interface kind of part of it. So we're going to look at the Express bit. So just a quick recap. In the first video, you kind of looked at the user API kind of service interface. Looked at the user DB, the user session DB, created a DB interface there, and a database class there. That was a so we used a fake one for the testing, and then using another test we derived the Mongo adapter as well that can connect to a real Mongo instance. And today I'd like to look at the Express stuff. Just on a point of note with one of the Bob Martin videos that refers to the user API. They're adding in the kind of controller logic in there. So I kind of think this is going to be more akin to what would be referred to there as the user service. So just on a point of just naming, I just wanted to call it kind of user service, just to kind of make it clear where things can be kind of compared. So yeah, I wanted to kind of focus on the Express piece. I wanted to use kind of again a TDD style to drive out the Express kind of piece of work there and the front end that we want to kind of get to. So I'm going to rename this user API. I'm going to rename that symbol to user service there, which means hopefully that's all been updated there, which is good. And we'll also then rename, has that been updated there as well? It doesn't need to be because it's not being used there. We do need to update, we need to rename the file though as well. We'll call it user service, yes, we'll update that. And also then the user API factory should be user service factory. So we'll do that. Hopefully that all still works. Let's give that another go. No, because we're trying to find that in our type. That file needs to be. In fact, of course, that also needs to be. Let me just undo that. Let me just also rename that symbol to user service factory. That means that will update as well. Now we go back to here. They should be running and the test and succeeding, which they are, which is good. So we also need to then rename that file to user service. Okay, so we're there. That's all done. Cancel that. Do that. That should run. Fine. So we've renamed the class. So that's all been renamed. Happy with that. Happy with that. Let me just commit those changes. Renamed user API. Call that. Go back to there. So for the Express tests, again we're using kind of Mocha. So I want to describe the API, and in here, what do we want to do? So we're looking at the. I've already kind of set up a Postman set of requests here. So we've got the register, login, and the about. And we're basically saying that when we do the register, we're expecting to get a response back that tells us that things were working correctly. If we're looking at our README, we've got the details here. Post to /users. So I'm going to say that should be post to register rather than users. Let's say post to /register, creates a new user, takes in username and password about, and returns ID and username. In order to start doing something here, so let's just say it should register a new user. And we'll do that. Now, this is going to be some form of Express application, and as some form of Express application, I need something to test some form of Express application. And in order to do that, we can use a rather excellent little library called supertest. So I'm going to add that in to here. And because we're using Express, I'll also add in Express, npm I Express, and we'll also add in, I don't know, do we need to do the types for that? Let's see. Types, I think we do, but yeah, okay, so let's add in some stuff. So we've now got, I think just looking at the what to do here, so there's your basic kind of, that's your basic supertest setup. And we want to do import and import and from like that. That's in the integration tests piece. So let's just check to see if that actually works. That's doing request app get. Now that's an async operation. So what I'm going to do is just put an await in front of there, just so that we get just so that it hopefully will work. And let's do npm run test int, because that was already set up. Okay, res has specifically any type, function res. Oh, okay, so let's just do, for the time being, let's do, can we do express dot request, is that a thing? And can that be express dot response? Maybe that can also be an express dot response, don't know. What does it say? Error has any type. So maybe that's an error, don't know. See what that does. Import, okay, so it wants us to save types for that. Let's add 3 packages. Response. Okay, let's I'll tell you what, let's get rid of that and just do that for the time being. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we've got a really kind of basic kind of supertest setup, supertest and express setup. We're using the request thing from supertest, and we're using express. So we've created a new express app. We're doing app.get, and we're doing that. So I think we can start off now by saying, again, do this in a bit of a sort of TDD way. We're saying we're going to post to register, like so, and we want that to, I'm going to say it's going to return. In fact, let's do this. Let's do the assertion first. Get off. Stop it. Copy that in there, and it's going to be a post. And this, I think, is it send, and then we're going to have. So let's also set up our const registration details, and that's actually, we're going to make that a registration details as well. Registration details, there we go. That we should be able to import from somewhere. Okay. And we're missing some details there, aren't we? And we're saying that should return let's do response body equals ID, and let's say that should be 111, and the user name should be username. So we want to say that's going to be const response, and let's just log out, let's just see what's going on there. Console.log. In fact, let's just let's do the body as well and see. Let's get rid of those two for the moment. Let's add that into there, just so we're actually sending something. Not. Oh, okay. So straight away we need to set that up as a post. Okay, and it's returning that. So we can now say assert dot deep equal response dot body and response. So let's see what we get. Hopefully that'll give us an error. In fact, actually, let's also, while we're here, let's go into our package.json and let's just set up a watch for that one. And let's run it from in here. Int watch. So at least we can see the things erroring. So we can get rid of that. We can take that. In fact, let's just take that and hard code it straight into there. So now we've got something that's passing. So that's good. We know it's not right, obviously, because it's just hard coded, and we know that what this thing should be using is the user service. And what I want to do there actually, so we don't want this to be using the real user service. What we actually want to do here is export an interface. It's going to be called that. And again, all of this, what's it called? Get about. All of this auto completion is being done by GitHub Pilot. GitHub Pilot. It's magic. So I'm going to. That's taking registration details. So we should be able to say that implements that. That should all work. We should be able to go back to here, and we should be able to import from there. Is that the right place? User.server, no, user service. What's that not liking? Oh, it's fine, it's working. So, somehow or other we want to do something that makes this work the way it's supposed to. I'm going to create another test here and do the same thing. And what that's going to drive out, so I'm now going to remove the app piece up to here, so it's kind of outside of the test itself. We'll put that there, and we'll get rid of that. Register another new user, and now they should both be passing. But if I now change that to that, and maybe that to that, it'll fail because now that hard-coded response doesn't work. What we can do here is say that so I've got two options here. I can either basically put the logic into the controller to make this to make this kind of return the correct thing. So I could say, generate an ID, or make sure the username that's returned is the same one that's passed in the request. But actually, that logic, particularly the bit about the ID, is part of the user service. So the user service takes care of that. We can see on register, we add a user, and that generates a new user, and that's where the ID comes from. So that logic doesn't exist within the controller. So at this point, I can say that actually that what the test needs to assert here is not that ID, or what the test needs to assert is not that our controller has kind of got the right logic in it for this, but that it's calling the register method on user service, because that will return the object that we want. So what we can do here is what I'm going to do is to make my life easier here. This is where we'll end up anyway. So I'm going to create the class, and the class is going to be called my app. And my app is going to have a constructor, and that's going to take an app. Do I need to do it as a constructor, or can I do it as a static one? I might do it as a static one first. No, actually, no. It needs to be. If I'm going to pass something in, I'm going to need a constructor, and this is going to take that private user service interface. And what we're then going to do is define, so we're going to let's create a build method here. So, and the build method will take an app, which will be an instance of Express. Is that right? Is that what it is? Probably. And then we're going to take that, and we're going to do that. And in here, we're then going to say in fact, we might as well, for the time being, let's just move that in. Let's do that, and let's return app. probably enough. It's probably enough for there, because then what I can do is I can just say my app equals new my app, and then I can say that. And actually what we're actually interested in is actually just that bit. So we can do that. That doesn't exist, so what we can do here is say const service equals, and we can then say that's of type user service interface. That can go into there. Add those in there. What I'm going to do for the moment is get rid of that and that, and I'm going to just put that as any for the moment, just so it gets it working, and hopefully at some point we will see, where's it? Oh, that's 74, so that's down here, so we're going to need to again, I'm going to get rid of that, take that down here, put that in there. Okay, so now we're back to where we were, one passing, one failing, but what we've got now is the ability to, so what we've done is we've created a class that takes an instance of a user service object and then uses that when we call the build method to build our Express app. And what I'm going to do then is basically configure the response of this to return what we want for our tests. So what I can do here is I can take that for the time being and say that when you call register, that returns, that we return promise.resolve and that, and I can do the same thing in the next test, just there, but that's going to be 2 and that's going to be 2. Our test should still, we've got one failing, one passing, but what I can now do is go back up to our class and say return dot, oh that should be this, this dot user service dot register reg.body. Now this is not going to work. Well, we're going to register, an outer value of this is shadow. Oh, that's not very good, is it? So what we can do here, and this is going to be a refactoring anyway, is take that out there, create a private do that, will that work? This dot register, does that solve the problem? So we get 500 internal server error. If I just, what I'm going to do here, just for the time being, is take that and put that back in there. So put that back just there, just see if that's working. Okay, that's back to where we were, that's good. So this .service.register, that was rec.body, wasn't it? So that's given me, now I don't know why that's given me a 500 internal server error, but one thing I'm going to take a wild stab at here, in fact, let's just take, let me do two things. One, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to copy that back up to there. But I'm also just going to do a console log on rec.body. So I'm interested to know what we get there. So rec.body is undefined. So that's probably not helping. So what I'll do is just to check to see what happens if we put undefined in there. Do we get the... Okay. Let's try that and see if that... Okay, so we get 500 server error if we pass undefined into there. So that looks to me like that's what's happening. And I know that that's because we don't have the body parser module installed. So I'm going to do that body parser. And I could do with knowing what body parser, what we need to do with that. Express body parser. Can never remember how to configure this. Quite an easy way of doing it. So there we go. Let's try it just with that one for the time being. So again, we're going to come back to here. That's going to be there. That can go up there like that. And let's try running our test again. And now let's try with rec.body. No, still didn't like it. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, so we're getting the body now, which is good. So we've got an error there, express 24, 31, 24. This dot user service, undefined. Why is that undefined? That shouldn't be undefined. So we've created the service there, new service. And we've created the service there, new service. Cannot read property user service of undefined. Of undefined. Aha. So what is this there and this dot user service? So what have I done? Let me just check what I did previously. So I think what I've done previously, which is slightly different here. That's interesting. So the way I'd done it previously was to put that there, but I'd done that as just an anonymous function. So let's see if that is what's making a difference here. Where's that? Get rid of that. So that's interesting. That's interesting. So it didn't like the anonymous function. So it didn't like the scope of this in that method. Useful to know. So anyway, come down here. So that should be returning the right thing. It's obviously not returning the right thing at the moment. So expected and actual, so it actually returns something empty. Why did it return something empty? And that's because we possibly need to await that. There we go. Right, so we're back in business. Got the register method working. We can now, I kind of feel like I can get rid of that second test. What I'm also going to do, I'm just going to wrap that in another describe registration. And I'm going to move that from there down to there, and then we'll indent all of that. It's got a new user, getting response. So in fact, actually, we can take those up to here. We can put that into there. And we can probably also say const username equals username. And get rid of that. Just to make that a little more concise, I'll probably also do that, just to save a tiny amount of space. So we've got this is effectively acting as a mock, or it's a test. Let's use the same language that Martin Fowler used. It's a test double. It's not a mock. It's more. I would say it's possibly a stub. I don't know, but anyway, what I'd like to do here is actually know that this was called. So I'd also like to just put an assertion there and say assert, and I want to say is true, and I want to create a spy for this, and it's going to be register. Let's create register spy dot called once, something like that, and then. So that register spy doesn't exist yet, which is good. So I'm then going to say const register spy equals synonym.spy register. Synonym doesn't exist yet, so we're going to add synonym, add that as a dev dependency. We'll run that again. That should now be able to import that. Does does that work? Into the types. Cool, okay. And just to prove that that's actually working, we could say call twice. Yeah, twice. And have that fail because it wasn't called twice. So we know that our app is responding to a register URL. It's returning a 200, and it's calling the register method, and it's returning the correct data because that's coming back. So yeah, that all feels like that's kind of working. I'm now going to take that same thing and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to turn it into the login one because I think it's going to be relatively similar. So log in a user. So we're going to want that. So we're going to have login details, aren't we? Login details, which is going to be login details. That doesn't have an about on it. It's just username and password. Response from that should be, I think, a token. So we'll call that token. That's going to want to have, in fact, let's just not make any assumptions there. We'll say login with login details should return response body. We'll take that out of there for the moment, so we're not doing that. So we've now, and we'll ignore that for the moment because we don't need it. So we've got a new test that based on a username we'll try and log that user in and we'll expect back a token. We've not done anything different with our service yet, it's still only got the register method there, but we are creating our app still, and we're now posting to the login endpoint with login details and expecting to get 200 back with the correct response body, which was the token. And that's failing, we're getting a 404. So we can now go back up to our handler here. We can do the same thing, and we'll rather than hard coding the response. In fact, you know, it can. Let's hard code the response. Token. Token. So that now passes. So now let's bring in, so having kind of made that pass, let's bring in the second assertion and say, actually, we want to spy on a login method here. And the login method takes login details. Actually, do we care about the login details? We don't actually even care about the details there. We want to check that register, let's call it a login spy now, login spy. We want to check that is called, and that should now fail because it's not been called. So I can now go back up to here and say what that should return. That. No, it passes again. And just one minor thing, so we can change from here, we can get rid of that. Because we're marking that as any, it doesn't actually matter that we're not passing anything in. And we don't care about the arguments anyway at this point, so that's not what we're testing. We should test that, but that's not what we're testing. If this was a mock, we would be testing the arguments are being passed correctly. So that gives us our login. And so now we've got the about page. So get the user about property. So this doesn't want the about, does it? It wants token. So that's, don't need that, and the response body should be about, and let's put about, and that should be about, and that should be get. It doesn't take any details there. We don't care about that. We just want to know that when we call that, we get the about data. So again, we've got 404. So up here we will add in about, and that'll be about, passing in, let's just put in token for the moment, let's get about, isn't it? Get about, and that's get. So we've now, so this is quite interesting. So so now we don't have a, let's just close that up and close that up, so we don't need those. So we're passing, what are we doing here? We're calling get about. We've got a login, we don't have an about method. What does the about method actually even look like? Gets token, returns about. And the response body here is that. Let's get about, get about. Get rid of that spy, we don't need it. Okay, so now we're getting the about, we're getting that about data. But actually there is one minor kind of issue that we want to, in fact actually, sorry, let me just, so we'll do login spy, that's going to be about, let's call that about spy, and that's going to be about, and we're going to call that about spy called once, so we can check that. So that's that should be get about, not about. That should work there. So now we've done that, and that function's being called already, so that is kind of calling that, which is good. There is one issue here though, and that's that we're not actually, we're just hard coding that token there. So what we want to be able to do here is say that we want to know that that token is being passed, so I could change that to token 2. That'll still pass, and that shouldn't work. So what we want to know is that the token is being passed in. So I'm just going to put in here and put called with, and I'm going to put token in there and just see if that, I don't even know if that's going to work. Okay, so that's saying, let's try that. So, okay, so that passes, and if I change that to token 2, does that still pass? Okay, that fails, good. So doing called with token is checking to see whether that value is getting passed through. And there we can see it is, and if I change it to token 2, it says it's not, because we've hard-coded the value there. And actually we're not even passing in the token here, so I think here we do set, and then I think we're going to put token and token. So that at least gets it passed in, but so now we're saying we're passing that. And now we should be able to put here rec.headers.token, and that will complain because that might not be set. So I think what we can do there is do something like that. What is it about that how did I get around this the first time? So what I did before on this, I created a little method, a little private helper method called extract token. And that took that and what I did here was say const token equals this dot extract token, like so that I could then say token and I could say here if type of rec.headers.token not equals string, throw new error token not found. That resolves that, and then all I need to do here is put a try catch around that, and I can just do something like, okay, yeah, let's do that. I've probably written, I kind of feel like I've written a bit more than I should do there, but nonetheless, it does mean now that that gets passed. So yeah. So then you've got an about method, you've got a login method, and you've got a registration method, all doing what they're supposed to do there. I should add another test here to kind of check that we get the correct response if there's no token. In fact, I could just quickly do that here. And rather than passing the token, I could just get rid of that. That should then give me a fail. That should return 401, which is good, that's what we expected. We're not checking the, so response body should be, so should that, is there an is null? Does that work? And let's put equal. And then expect called is false. A little bit cheeky because I wrote the test after the code, but why doesn't it gets you, so it doesn't gets you about the property throws error if no token. Without token, there we go. So that's So hopefully now we're kind of testing all parts of that. What I can do now is take that from there my app.ts, put TD, whatever that is. Put that in there, don't show missing imports. Missed the end of my class, not very good. That's all of it. So now we can get rid of that from there. And we can hopefully still say import my app from there. That works quite well. Get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of Express from there. Hopefully that'll all still work. So that's all still passing, which is good. So now I kind of feel like the last thing for us to do is to just kind of like wire all this stuff together and see if it works. So we've got, you know, Postman kind of set up here. Can we make this functional? So I've got an empty app.ts file here, and all I'm going to do here is say const my app equals new my app, and that wants a user service, so I'm going to say const user service equals user service factory.create, and that wants a DB, so I'm going to say const DB equals new what are our DB options? DB probably is that, isn't it? DB, that goes into there. But I don't, all I care about here really is dot build with app. I don't have an, in fact it's just build, isn't it? And then I can do app dot listen 3000. Maybe, will that work? Let's just cancel that. Let's cancel that. And let's see, so that's app.ts. Probably want in here something to run this. So let's do start, let's do dev ts node source app.ts. Alright, maybe that's enough. Let's give it a go. npm run dev. See what happens when we try and connect to it. What have I got set up as my, so I said 3000, that's running on 3000. Register. Look at that. Get an ID. So now we should be able to go to, if we go to about, for example here, we should get a 401. Go to login, try and log in with the username and password. It gives us a token. Take the token, pass it to about, call that token. Again, just leave that as nothing, that's going to be a 401, put that in there. Get about, look at that. We can take, just to sort of prove this, so Mongo is not running at the moment there, so that was just using our in-memory database, and I can prove that by, if I just refresh that, it gives me about, if I cancel that, just run it again, when I run this, it'll give me a 401 again, because now it's lost that user. So if I cancel that, and instead of doing a new DB, I do a new Mongo DB. MongoDB wants something, doesn't it? What does MongoDB want? That was Mongo client, and how did we do that in our test? wants an await method, so we want that, and that's going to then get passed into there. That wants to be included, imported, and get rid of that for the moment. That needs to be wrapped in async. Come on, async function main. That can go to there, that can go there, and then that can go there. So let's try that, see if that works. Oh no, that's not. That shouldn't be working anyway. Yeah, it's not working. But if I run Docker to get my Mongo instance running, that should now hopefully run, perhaps. Okay, so that's running 401. Register again, gives me an ID. Log in, gives me a token. Go back to the about page, put my token in there. That doesn't work. Okay, so a little bit of work to do, but most of it works. Most of it works. Just something about my little DB is obviously not happy. So slightly strange there, but we'll see if we can. See if I can fix that in another one. Cool. Hopefully that's been useful.